Okay, the algorithm finding something very interesting for us. A guide to ship weapons. Oh, master modes 3.23. Let's check it out.
You've probably heard a lot of people talking about laser cannon meta recently, and for good reason, but what most of these sources don't mention is why. This guide is not here to tell you which weapons to use, but to break down exactly what the new categories of weapons are and what sets them apart now, so you can decide for yourself what fits your situation best. Welcome to University of Stanton. Class is in session.
This is professional.
StarCitizen 3.23 is here, and the landscape has shifted completely when it comes to the balance of ship weapons. Between entirely new stats, increased ammo count on ballistics, and the fundamental changes to flight and aim in master modes, selecting your guns is, thankfully, no longer as simple as just use laser repeaters. Today we're going to be making extensive use of the Urkel.Games calculator and the SC Ships Performance Viewer. Please consider supporting these great tools and the incredible help they provide at understanding this ever-changing game. Links will be in the description below. To understand the new weapons, we're going to group them in the two ways that up front are the most important. The first is weapon size, and while we know this is important because it tells us where we can fit them, it's also tied, with a few exceptions we'll look at later, to how far you can shoot. Nearly all size 1 weapons have a range of about 2,000 meters. Size 2s will shoot 2,300, size 3s 2,600, size 4s 3,000, and size 5s 3,300. Second, and even more important, is the weapon's projectile speed. You'll find, along with some other stats, that this is actually split up by manufacturer product line. For example, all of the CF- laser repeaters by Klaus and Werner share a projectile speed of 1,800 meters per second. By contrast, the Deadbolt ballistic cannons by Asperia all share a projectile speed of 900 meters a second, and so on. If you tested master modes early on, one thing you no doubt remember is that the hodgepodge of stock weapons they came with usually resulted in having 2 lead pips to aim at, one closer to the target for the faster projectiles and one farther away for the slower ones. Choosing projectile speed is important because you can simplify how your ship plays in combat by selecting weapons that have the same, or at least close, projectile speed, so you only have to aim at a single pip rather than having to shift between 2 or more. This is only an option, but it's worth considering, especially if you're new to the game.
That's a good point.
More on mixing and matching different weapons later in the video. Each product line performs differently in other regards too. If you were to sort this weapons list on Urkel.Games by other stats like, say, fire rate, how rapidly the weapon fires, spread max, which is how much spread you get on your shots over distance when holding down the trigger, and so on, you would find each product line grouped up in the list again. Asperia's light strikes have the highest fire rate and projectile speed of any laser cannon, but the lowest damage per shot. Bearing's M series are the opposite, the lowest fire rate and projectile speed, but by far the highest damage per shot. Each manufacturer now has something of a personality that they put into the weapons they make, which is kinda cool. Each line offers a different combination of projectile speed, spread, damage per shot, fire rate, and one last important one on energy weapons that most people don't think to look at: regen cost per bullet. This is how much power your ship's capacitor has to spend for each shot, and when we compare it to the damage of the shot, listed as alpha max, we start to find that some weapons make better use of the available energy than others. There's no stat on Urkel for this, so we'll calculate it ourselves and call it damage to energy cost ratio. As a side note, you can see how much capacitor energy your preferred ship has by looking here for regen pool size, or going to Urkel's ship list and finding the column capacitor crew load. Dividing this by the regen cost per bullet is how Urkel calculates how many ammos you'll have in each gun. It's worth noting here, and we'll mention it later, that the more energy weapons you have on your ship, the fewer shots each one will have, because the available capacitor energy is being shared between them. Remember that for later. If we were trying to pick, say, a size 3 weapon for our ship that's easy to hit with and will give us the most bang for our buck, we could land naturally on a few different conclusions. The Omnisky 9 takes 3/4 of an energy point to apply 1 point of damage. Its very high projectile speed of 1,400 meters a second, which many PvPers will remember, was exactly the speed of the old laser repeaters. But alternatively, say if our targets will be very large and slow, could be M5A, which offers an extremely efficient 2-to-1 conversion on energy, half a point of energy to apply 1 point of damage. with extremely high alpha. We need to aim carefully and differently because we'll have limited shots and they'll travel slowly, but when they hit, the damage will be unmatched for the amount of energy and time we've spent. The lower efficiency of the other weapons is a result of their increased fire rates combined with increased projectile speeds. You can shoot and spray much faster, landing some damage, but not as much as if you were accurate. Being accurate is always rewarded, but CIG chose with this weapon set to reward willingness to take a risk on slower, single shots than it did staying on target with a fast spraying weapon. Just like the energy weapons, ballistics come with a full range and variety of fire rate, alpha damage, and accuracy, and their categories, Gatlings, repeaters, and cannons, actually make a little more intuitive sense. Ballistics come with some pros and cons. There's a place for them when you need to target components, turrets, engine nacelles, and wings because they can hit through shields, but this comes at a cost. In 3.23, all shields have a 0 to 30% physical absorption, which is a semi-random number that's subtracted from your ballistic damage and taken out of the shield hit point pool. Whatever damage is left, minus that, is then reduced further by the hull's physical resistance, which is now at least a flat 50% on all ships. Shooting a target with ballistics means you will be doing less than half the damage, but sometimes this is worth it. And as we've seen in the Arena Commander engineering tests, there will be increased opportunity for this in the future. SC Ship's Performance Viewer can give you an awesome glance at some of the possibilities here. Select a ship, click on the Parts section under a ship's hull, and you'll see a list. Vital parts with the green icon will result in the soft death of the ship when destroyed, whereas breakable parts with the red icon will snap off. On this Vanguard, we can see that shooting off the left engine will deprive the ship of a number of thrusters that otherwise can't be attacked directly. Unfortunately, this doesn't show hit points for manned turrets, but these can in fact be attacked and disabled with a reasonable amount of direct damage. Ballistics also offer more consistent fire. Although they generate heat that has to be managed, this heat reduction happens way faster than the ship's capacitor can regenerate, which means you can be attacking with ballistics during times when energy weapons would have to recharge. The bad news is that you will still eventually run out. Ammo counts have been massively increased in 3.23 to a level that makes them viable in many more situations, but that bar is the time limit on your engagement. When it runs out in an all-ballistic build, your fight is over. One thing I like about ballistics is that damage you do with them stays. Let's say you attack a target with laser cannons, and as soon as its shields are about to fall, it boosts out of range to recharge. All of that damage you did is undone. With ballistics, they're not getting those hull and component hit points back unless they leave the field to repair. This doesn't always offer a clear benefit. In some engagements, the pilot with energy weapons is going to both strip the shields and do plenty of damage or destroy the target, but it's still something to consider. As I mentioned earlier, it may be easier when first starting to use the same weapon type on your whole ship, but some tests are suggesting that mixing and matching different weapon types will actually give you better overall damage output, and this makes sense. If you have fewer energy weapons on your ship, the remaining capacitor power goes to them and allows them to fire longer. Combine this with ballistics firing at the same time with their minimal cooldown, and you're getting longer, more sustained total damage on your target, with some of it happening before the shields even go down. But this is also a good time to remember not to get mired too deeply in theoretical debates about damage. It's a good start, but things that we determine on the whiteboard only survive until we encounter the next really good pilot who makes something totally unexpected work magic. Data is beautiful, but you are the variable in between. Get out in the world, try things, record the results, and come back and let me know in the comments what you found works for you. As promised, we'll take a brief look at these special weapon categories as well. Many of these come with specific ships and may or may not be removable to use on other ships. We'll start with the most obvious, the size 7 monsters on the Ion and Inferno variants of the Crusader Ares. The Inferno's SF-7B is actually in a pretty good place as ballistic Gatling.
By the way, for people grinding out bounties, this is really important. If this is how you're making your money, if this is how you're making your creds in the game, people grinding out bounties, how you're putting your ship out. A lot of people just fly the standard loadouts that come with the ship, which to me is crazy. You want to specialize the ship in your own manner, man. You gotta find the right tools for you, and you gotta play around with this. It's super important. It's like night and day when you fit your ship versus like the standard fit that comes with every ship. It really is. So if you guys are just flying standard fits, don't. Don't listen to this guy. I'm going to put the links down to all these sites that I'm also going to put this link to this video for people watching live. I think this guy is legit. This guy knows what he's talking about. I'm going to like this as well. Only 3.6 thousand, only 3,000 subscribers. Go there right now and subscribe to this dude and tell him you saw him on DG360. The algorithm working is absolute magic right now. I love this dude. He's breaking things down so nicely for people that are new to the game. Like, I know a lot of this stuff, but like for people that aren't aware of it, this is a great representation of how to fit your ship. I mean, like, I love this dude. His name is University of Stanton. Let's keep going.
Go. Purple, it has more than double the damage of an 85B, has better heat management, and shares the tightest accuracy spread among Gatlings. The Ion's SF-7E cannon wasn't quite as lucky, but has its place if you're going for very big, very slow prey. It's finally been shoehorned into its advertised anti-big ship role by a charged fire mechanic. Pressing the trigger will begin charging, and releasing it will fire up to a maximum of 6,000 damage. The weakness is that you can't hold it at max and release at will. When it hits max, the shot is going ready or not. I feel like they could have taken a page out of Descent or Overload's book here, and given you at least a brief window to hold the charge and build heat in order to get the best shot possible. Rocket pods do not look promising at present. They travel at the slowest projectile speed of 700 meters a second, so hitting with them will be difficult. They only do 150 damage, and you only have a small number of shots before they're empty. They do have an explosion radius of 4 meters, which is on par with some smaller missiles, but it's unlikely that that low of damage will affect components very much. It seems like these weapons simply didn't get a real consideration in the balance pass. The sledge mass drivers are a type of ballistic cannon with a very high alpha damage and projectile speed, 3,000 meters a second, but limited range, 1050 to 1500 meters across the size 1 to 3 range. They also require the skill check of holding the trigger down to charge before the weapon fires, requiring the shooter to be precisely on target at the instant it goes off. There's an argument for using these as turret weapons on stable platform ships, as their projectile speed will make it much easier to land hits on moving targets, but the ammo count of 70 makes them an extremely weak prospect for anything other than a single hit-and-run attack. However, Singe or tachyon cannons are a Banu weapon that behave just like the sledge mass drivers, with the charge-up skill check and killer 3,000 meters a second projectile speed, only their energy. They don't run out of ammo, and they don't suffer from shield and ballistic damage reduction, but they also hit through shields like ballistics. While it would be crazy difficult to use these as a single pilot weapon, there is a strong argument for stripping the size 3 Singe cannons from the Banu Defender to use on other ship turrets. Someone with solid FPS aim in a turret can land absolutely devastating hits on targets within 1500 meters with very minimal lead. In testing, we were routinely blowing wings off the Gladius straight through its shields. The Vanguard nose guns are size 2, and you can equip 4 of them on your favorite Vanguard model in any combination you wish.
I don't think I've used those. I actually don't think I've used those. What's the power consumption on those?
Like all size 2s, they have a range of 2,300 meters, but the lasers have a speed of 1,000, ballistics 1,200.
Not these. I think he's referring to the Singe.
And distortions 1,300.
Back here, I've never used this this particular weapon right here that he was speaking of.
Hits on targets within 1500 meters with very minimal lead. In testing, we were routinely blowing wings off the Gladius straight through its shields. The Vanguard nose guns are size 2, and you can equip 4 of them on your favorite Vanguard model in any combination you wish. Like all size 2s, they have a range of 2,300 meters, but the lasers have a speed of 1,000, ballistics 1,200, and distortions 1,300 meters a second. Individually, they tend to be roughly on par with their other size 2 counterparts, but they vary in special ways that probably deserves its own video. The plasma cannons are a Vandal energy weapon. The size 3 Warlord and 5 Wrath trade a little of their effective range, which is hardly a factor, for extremely good energy efficiency and a higher alpha damage than you can get for their projectile speed of 1,400 meters a second, while the size 2 Whip appears to just be a carbon copy of the M4A. However, the size 1 Weak and size 2 Wasp are cracked. These so-called laser cannons have a higher damage, higher refire, and the same 1800 meters a second speed as the light strike line, along with an almost 2-to-1 energy efficiency. The apparent trade-off of these is that they are bespoke and fixed mounted to the Vandal ships, which means no option to gimbal, but most people are going to be running fixed anyway. Watch out for the Vandal ships this patch. Distortions are in an interesting place once again. Although it is technically possible to shut down a target with sustained fire, which will shut it off for its power plant's full restart time, usually 5 minutes or more, they do almost no damage against shields, so it becomes a question of whether you want to sacrifice your main DPS for distortions to use when you get shields down. Both the cannons and repeaters have the same projectile speed of 1300 meters a second. Cannons have a 1-to-1 energy efficiency, but repeaters cost almost 2 energy to 1 damage, so cannons will objectively be the way to go here. Scatters, as they always have been, are weird. If for some reason you were building a ship for the role of parking at point blank next to a large, impossible to miss target and doing nothing but laying into it, sure, the damage numbers are technically there, but don't expect it to be a mainline weapon. For almost everyone, combat range and time on pip are simply too unpredictable for the massive spread these have. Now, some usefulness this has seen before and will continue to see is for piracy, because the ballistic scatters are extremely handy for quickly blasting open a cargo ramp even through shields.
Also air to ground for infantry units, by the way. Scattergun works really well if you're just trying to pick off infantry units.
So if you have a particular creative solution to a situation, give them a look. 3.23 has certainly shaken things up and cut our work out for us. We have a whole new weapon set with new properties, some of which we may not have even discovered yet. And there's lots of room for feedback, which I encourage you to leave on Spectrum and on Issue Council. If you found this helpful, join the University of Stanton community, where veteran players are happy to help you find your way in this amazing game. Links are in the description below. Thanks for watching.
Dude, this guy is on point. I love this dude. This guy, let's give him an A, man.
Yes, sir. You're gonna hit me.
All right, I've subscribed to him. 3,000 subscribers. Really good vid. Good presentation. I loved how he showed the weapons. He went 3D on the weapons. He literally went down, showed you the weapon, talked about the weapon, showed you the tools that you needed. Like, he gave you the website links, everything. This guy is awesome. I love it. This is exactly what I want in a tutorial. Good music, kept me focused. I didn't stray one time, man. I was in it to win it. This guy knows what he's doing. I want more tutorials from this guy on everything Star Citizen related. This guy's got a recipe for success. He's going to blow up. This guy's going to blow up. We're going to help him blow up. Go over there right now. Let me give you the link. Go over there and subscribe to this guy right now if you're here live. If you're watching on YouTube, the link is down below. Go subscribe to this dude. He knows what he's talking about, and we need to get him. We need to give him that DG360 boost. Give him the DG360 booster. Love